You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Drug use? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Yesterday I released a video that focused on Harry's wife's bizarre jaw clenching and queried, is this a consequence of drug use, or is it the facade seeking to contain her ignited fury? After consideration of that, it caused me to address the wider question of, is Harry's wife utilizing drugs? I don't mean prescription drugs, for instance, for back pain, or cosmetic drugs, for instance, to aid weight loss, but the old recreational pharmaceuticals, street drugs. There has been in the past and more recently, as a consequence of her behaviours, more of that in due course, increased speculation that Harry's wife may well be utilising recreational drugs. We know that in the past there has been a dalliance with marijuana that arose in relation to the goodie bags that were supplied at her wedding to Trevor Engelson. But many people are speculating, as a consequence of the way that they have seen her behaving and her appearance, that she may well be using drugs and that there is an increased reliance upon that. In terms of the drug use and what drug might be used, if, and remember this is an if, drugs are being taken, it's probably most likely that it would be cocaine. Why? Because that's seen as the drug of the glamorous. Speed would be seen more as a peasant's drug by Harry's wife, and she'd be more likely to turn to cocaine. So is it the case that she has been getting through the blow, that she has been indulging in the nose candy, that she's been jumping into the snow, having a toot, enjoying the expensive, getting hold of some sniff? Well, there are various factors that we need to consider, and, most importantly of all, how this fits with her status as a narcissist. First of all, to consider, there is her appearance. Harry's wife has had some pronounced weight loss as of late. This has prompted speculation as to what is behind it. There have been rumours of Ozempic use, the new miracle drug that suppresses one's appetite, resulting in her looking skinnier than usual. It might be that she has just been dieting. Her body doesn't look like one that gets regular exercise. There's not a lot of tone and muscle definition to it, and therefore it could be that she's simply reducing her calorific intake. However, it is well known, of course, that certain substances cause a loss of appetite, cocaine being one of them. And therefore, this change in appearance has understandably caused people to speculate, is there some drug use that has prompted it? Beyond, of course, the actual weight loss, there's the fact that we've seen the jaw clenching, as I explained in yesterday's video. That could be as a consequence of drug taking, as certain drugs do cause that to happen, but it may also be as a consequence of the facade management seeking to keep her ignited fury in check. We have seen on multiple occasions where her control has been threatened, that her jaw juts, that she clenches, that the neck muscles become tense as a response to the threat to control and the battle between the facade management and the rising ignited fury. There's also been instances of her having been seen pursing her lips, licking her lips, rubbing her nose, touching her nose. That may well also be indicators of drug use, as those are common responses from drug users. But also, it might be the case that this is the manifestation of anxiety, and, as you know from my previous work, As a consequence of when her control is threatened, her anxiety increases because she feels unsettled. It's the way that her narcissism causes her to feel in order to react to it and do something to get that control. There's also been speculation about her teeth. It's known that she wears veneers, and either she has got oversized ones, or the weight loss has made her teeth look more pronounced, as numerous people have pointed out that her teeth look rather large for her mouth. Might it be that she's suffering poor dental health as a consequence of drug use? Accordingly, her appearance in terms of weight loss, jaw clenching, the various pursing of the lips, etc., and the veneers could be indicators of drug use. A further indicator which has resulted in additional speculation has been her behaviour. Harry's wife often engages in incongruous behaviour. What she does doesn't necessarily fit with what is going on around her. And I've explained to you that this is as a consequence of the fact that she has no emotional empathy, and therefore she just naturally does not feel the way that she should act. It has to be assessed by her narcissism. And often, her narcissism will get it wrong, sometimes only slightly, sometimes more obviously. Watch my video, The Imitation Game, to understand more. But in essence, her incongruous behaviour may well be as a consequence of her narcissism misfiring and selecting responses which don't quite fit with the actual scenario she finds herself in. We've seen, for example, the exaggerated dancing, the wild-eyed clapping, the waving of her arms around. Now, she's often behaved like a pissed-up ninja in the past, but these behaviours do appear to have been more pronounced as of late. Might this be the manic behaviour of somebody that's high, that somebody who has taken drugs? It's a possibility. But it's also worth noting that her more manic behaviours could well be linked to two factors associated with her narcissism. First of all, seeking attention. As you know, she requires fuel. She requires the emotional output of other individuals as a consequence of what she has done to sustain her as her lifeblood. People clapping her gives her fuel, telling her that they love her gives her fuel, shouting that she's a miserable cow gives her fuel, providing her with a gift gives her fuel. There's lots of different ways that fuel can be provided to a narcissist, and if you'd like to understand more about that fascinating topic, please do read my book, Fuel. It may therefore be the case that these exaggerated actions of waving those oversized hands through the air, of the dancing, etc., are all being done to try and bring attention onto herself in order to assert control over people and draw fuel from them. Secondly, it may be the case that these manic behaviours are actually as a consequence of the receipt of fuel. When a narcissist receives fuel, dependent upon where their fuel level is, it can make them feel as if they're fizzing. Where a narcissist's fuel level is very low, the narcissist feels anxious. There's an impending sense of doom. The walls of the world feel as if they're closing in on the narcissist. The chasm makes its presence known. But where the narcissist is well fueled and receives increasing fuel, they feel powerful. There is a sense of invincibility. The narcissist practically fizzes with excitement. Bear in mind that Harry's wife has had a torrid time of it as of late, and at the Invictus Games she was largely appreciated by the crowd and the various officials and competitors, all providing her with pure positive fuel. She received several days' worth of this, and therefore as a consequence of that, it may well be what you've been witnessing isn't the product of her being high, but is actually as a consequence of her being high on fuel, and therefore she feels so powerful, so empowered, so alert as a consequence of the receipt of all of this fuel that she behaves in this manic fashion. And therefore her behaviour could be suggestive of somebody that has taken drugs, But also, because she's a narcissist, it is also indicative of the way that somebody would behave in terms of trying to draw attention onto themselves and reacting to the copious amounts of fuel that she has recently been receiving. Another factor that needs to be considered with regard to whether she is using drugs is access. Drugs are invariably expensive where you have a habit, and she does have access to more money than other people, and therefore that would support having a habit. Furthermore, her husband has admitted that he has taken drugs in the past, and fairly recently also. Accordingly, given the fact that drug use is something that's accepted in their household, it may mean it's easier for her to indulge in it. If your partner is anti-drugs, then you have to behave more furtively. You have to slip away, watch what you're doing. The opportunities for snorting a line are much reduced. But if you have a partner who is relaxed about drug taking and indeed is indulging themselves, then there is enabling that goes on. And in the circumstances, it may well be a joint enterprise that they engage in. Of course, there is no direct evidence of drug use, but it's important, nevertheless, to consider the various circumstantial aspects surrounding this seen through the context of narcissism. There's also the fact, of course, that it's known that her mother is a drug user. She certainly has been in the past. It's rumoured that she disappeared for a period of time as a consequence of drug offences, although that is speculation. And therefore, there is the suggestion that Doria Ragland may well have been involved in the provision of drugs to the household, or again, being somebody who's relaxed about such taking. Furthermore, with her often being on hand alongside a nanny, etc., the children are taken care of, potentially allowing Harry's wife to indulge. It's also interesting to note that given the past use of drug use by Doria Ragland, that a child of somebody who is an addict is 45 to 79% more likely to abuse drugs than the general population, according to the National Institutes of Health. Now, it's unclear whether Doria Ragland would be described as an addict, but it is known that she has used drugs in the past, and may well still do. The circles that Harry's wife moves in, she's moved away from the royals, more into the celebrity circuit, and certainly the levels at which she operates, it's a situation that drugs are often taken. We also know in the past that she's had that dalliance with drugs because marijuana was handed out at her wedding. It was the case that she boasted to friends about giving out marijuana in party bags at her first wedding. This arose from leaked emails which had been seen by the Sun newspaper, and Harry's wife revealed that she would serve the drug to guests as she tied the knot with Trevor Engelson in Jamaica. Her friend advised her to buy a special bag for the cannabis, and she allegedly replied, "Already ordered them, and teeny ones for the pot that say, shh." Accordingly, there is an environment which may facilitate drug taking in terms of her husband, who also has taken drugs and may continue to do so, ditto with regard to her mother, having the financial firepower to access drugs, and an attitude of drug taking as has been witnessed in the past. There then concerns the fact that she's a narcissist. Narcissists are more prone to drug taking. It doesn't mean that every narcissist will take drugs, that's not the case, but it does increase the possibility of doing so. Why? Well, first of all, a narcissist operates with a sense of entitlement. Therefore, they believe that they're allowed to do what they want, and therefore taking drugs is just part of the way that it is. With certain narcissists, the image associated with drug taking, particularly for somatics, is one that's attractive. It's seen as glamorous. It's seen as what the beautiful people do. There's also the fact, of course, that a narcissist has no sense of accountability, and in those circumstances is undeterred by the illegality of certain drug taking. Furthermore, the narcissist, with that sense of entitlement and lack of accountability, is unaffected by considerations such as what about the impact it might have on children, or the impact upon finances, etc. Narcissists exhibit grandiosity. Not all, but some. And as part of that, there is a concept of invincibility. I can drink and take drugs, it's not going to affect me. I'm invincible. I'm Superman. I'm Superwoman. And therefore, that attitude also means that a narcissist is more prone to taking drugs. Furthermore, and of particular relevance, is the fact that drugs, along with alcohol, are fuel substitutes. The sensations that come from the use of drugs are not dissimilar from that of the receipt of fuel, and therefore in certain circumstances a narcissist may well be prone to taking drugs in order to substitute the fuel. The picture that's in the thumbnail is taken from a film, by the way, and isn't actual footage or a photograph of Harry's wife taking drugs, simply simulated as well as stimulated there. Nevertheless, the question does arise as to whether she has been involved in drug use. There are various factors which support that she may well do, but it's also important to recognise that many of her behaviours may actually be as a consequence of her narcissism and not actual drug taking. As I state, there's no direct evidence of her being seen carrying drugs, snorting a line, etc. But there is plenty of supporting evidence which supports the possibility that this has taken place, and it's worthwhile examining within the context of her narcissism. What do you think? Do you think the recent appearance and behaviours, etc., are as a consequence of the way that her narcissism functions? Or do you think what you're seeing is a drug user? Perhaps it's a combination of the two. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.